seat. I know that a lot of you are just in anticipation, either for good or bad, for Monday. Monday is the beginning of a new school year. And man, the challenges that await you. And I know because of that, a lot of you guys, you're getting ready for this new time. And we started a new series to kind of help you deal with the transitions that are coming up. And we're calling it Driver's Ed. And the whole purpose of this is to help you see the warning signs as you're driving through school, driving through life, and as you're going through this highway that we call life, how you deal with these things. And if you recall, we talked a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, about what the warning signs are. Warning signs are designed to keep vehicles staying into non-dangerous areas and off-limit areas. So you see them long before you ever get into danger. You see you're going the wrong way, to yield and look and see where you're being, or slow down. You're going too fast. And so in life, the same thing deals with it. We started out that whole first service about be cautious how you live and how you act and how you walk. And so we're dealing with that, and we're going to continue that thought today. And if you are taking your notes, you can put on there, why can't we be friends? That's the top message. And yes, if you have your YouVersion, we are on YouVersion tonight. You can kind of go to that and pull up the notes, and you can follow along as we go through tonight's service. So you're most likely to find warning signs in potential danger areas. And you're also likely to see warning signs just before you get to an area that is too dangerous for you to be in. And so long before I ever get and I realize I'm going the wrong way and run into a crash, I'm going to say, look, you're going the wrong way. You're going the wrong way down a one-way street. And so I'm like, hey, you know what? I should stop. If it says no parking at any time, I probably shouldn't stay there too long. I should probably keep going. And the same thing with our spiritual life. As we're going through life and as we're going to face things, long before we ever get into danger, we see potential warning signs. And so we want to be able to see those things, and we want to be able to notice these things in our life before we ever get to them. And I asked us the question just a couple of weeks ago, what would it look like if we had warning signs in other areas of our life? Signs that are so strong that our conscience is challenged whenever we see them and where we run into them, that we have to make a change in direction or in the way we're going. The greatest regrets that we have in our life, the greatest situations that we ever face, could have probably been avoided had we had some financial, moral, relational, or professional warning signs in our life. And so we're going to deal with that. And just before I go any further, I just want to say this. I know that Kayla Kersey, this is her last Wednesday. She's going off. And I also know, I don't see Audrey, but Audrey's last Sunday is this Sunday. And so do we have any other college students? This is your last week here before you take off? All right, well, listen, we're going to miss you guys. This sermon is great for you. Watch for warning signs before you ever get into danger. But we are going to miss you guys, and so glad that you're here tonight for this final service. Kayla got to play her last time at Momentum Student Ministries. Oh, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Okay. Warning signs is a standard of behavior that become a matter of conscience. So today we're going to talk about specifically friends, associations that you have, people in your life that you run with, your peeps, your posse, your amigos, a bunch of other corny words I can think of. We're going to talk about your friends. And so some of you are by your friends tonight, for better or worse, these are your buds. Some of you, your friends aren't here. Some of your friends are at school. And some of you remember the friends you used to hang out with that you've been away from. But no matter what stage of life you're in, if you're a 7th grader, if you're a high schooler, if you're a college student, or even if you're an adult, the people you run with have a tendency to speak into your life for better or for worse. When I was a kid, my parents used to be fanatical about trying to see who I was going to be. Now, who's spending the night with you? Now, do I know their parents? I don't know their parents. So I remember one time we had to meet at little White House Park so that she could meet this person's parents before I spend the night with my friend who I'd known all my life because I've been living for so long, you know? And so we met at the park, and sure enough, one time my brother got in a lot of trouble. We wound up switching schools, and my parents paid for a private school for a short amount of time until we got in more trouble there than we did at public school. And so we went back to public school. Because you know what I learned about some private schools? Is that's where they send all the bad kids. So they got kicked out of school, so that's where they go. And so you just find a better, worse crowd to be with. Anyway, my parents wouldn't let me. I remember I had this friend named John Herring. And I know it sounds funny. We were not related, just had the same last name. I couldn't go to his house and hang out with John because his brother was a known person for maybe, perhaps, suggested, rumored, dealing drugs. And so for some reason, my parents wouldn't let me hang out with John because I might be around his brother and get in some trouble. So my parents were very fanatical about being careful who I spent time with, where I spent time with them at, and what I did with them. And so when you think about this, you kind of think, well, that's kind of ridiculous. They're a little obsessed. But you know what? Now your parents are my age. And aren't they worse? Now they got technical surveillance system. They check your Facebook. They know your text messages. They're reading your text messages. They know exactly how many minutes you spend on each phone call because they're like checking the bill. Why were you on the phone for 2 hours with Johnny? You know, who's Johnny anyway? You know, they're kind of finding out who you're with, and you're like, how do you know that? Are you stalking me? And yes, they are. Just in case there was ever a doubt, they're stalking you. And why is it? Why are they doing all this stuff? Why do parents become so obsessed? Because your parents know what my mama knows. And this is it. My mama knew this, that your friends determine the direction and the quality of your life. Your friends dictate the direction and the quality of your life. Write that down. That is tweetable. Listen, your friends, the people you hang with, your posse, your peeps. Listen, I could be lamer. Listen, y'all got to get into this, okay? Y'all wake up. I know that some football players are still at practice, and we'll just have to send them the message later on. But for you guys that are in here, you got to understand this. This will protect you and save you from a lot of hurt, a lot of problems, and a lot of dangers. Your friends, the people you're with, dictate the direction and the quality of your life. Many of you guys will look back one day and you'll say, you know what? Everything was going along fine. And then I started hanging out, and all of a sudden I look back and I noticed that I began to drop off. And I began to change the way I did and the way I treated people. And you'll look back and you'll begin to see that it's because the people you hang with, the friends, dictate this. And so it's so important that we begin to understand that who we hang out with, who our friends are, matter. Friends can be a great warning sign before you ever get into a situation or a problem. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. The things that make friendships wonderful are the very things that can make them very dangerous. And here they are. We drop our guard. When you're around friends and people you feel comfortable with, we let down our guard. We're no longer as cautious or guarded as we are around people we don't know as well. And so we begin to put up, we begin to take these walls that protect us, and we begin to pull them down, and all of a sudden we're no longer guarded. We crave acceptance. I wrote this in blue because I thought it was good. We crave acceptance, and acceptance leaves us open for influence. Because we have a desire to be accepted by other people, that desire for acceptance causes us to be susceptible and influenced by other people. You have to be careful about your desire to be accepted by a certain crowd, a certain group, because it leaves you open for influence. We've got some college guys in here. We got some college ladies in here that I bet if they were to tell you that as they look back on their life, the more they wanted to be accepted by a certain crowd, a certain group of people, that the more they look back, the more they got in trouble because they allowed themselves to be open, to be influenced, and go down a path or a direction that changed the quality of their thinking, that changed the direction of what they always believed or what they always did. And they'll tell you that the greatest turns in their life happen because they began to hang around the wrong people. Now the opposite is true too. You can hang around the right set of people, and all of a sudden, you know, most testimonies, most salvation stories start out like this. You know what? I was going down a bad trail. I had a bad home life, and then all of a sudden I had a friend. that took me to church. All of a sudden I had a friend and they began to talk to me about God, and they began to share things with me. And you know what? I began to open up myself for the first time for the possibility that there's a God, and it changed my life. It just radically changed my whole thinking, my process. So your friends can influence you for the good, or they can turn around and they can influence you for the bad. So you've got to realize as you look at your friendship, what are the signs that are being thrown up? Is it go or is it stop? Or in some case, when you're in a bad relationship, a dating relationship, it might even say you're going the wrong way. Right now, as you look back at last school year, many of you guys would say your friends that you hung out with either benefited you or they hindered you. They were the best thing in your life that pushed you forward and helped you get better, or they're the things that hindered you and pulled you down, and everything you got into it was because of that. Because we crave acceptance, here's the key. Listen, did anyone ever start smoking alone? No, they did in a group. A lot of addictive behavior began in a group. Your greatest regret in your life. Think right now about your greatest regret in life. Were you with an enemy or were you with a friend? That is good. Think about it. Your greatest regret in life. Were you with an enemy or are you with a friend? Because friends open you up to behavior and thinking that you wouldn't normally open up if you weren't with them. So you have to consider this. Your friends will influence the direction and the quality of your life. Not because you decided to let them. It's the nature of friendship. So tonight, we got one verse. It's the only verse you need to memorize for this week. It is one simple verse in Proverbs 13, verse 20. We're going to have it on the screen behind us. You got it in your YouVersion. Or you're looking up there, Proverbs chapter 13, not 33. Proverbs 13, verse 20. And it's simply this. Walk with the wise and become wiser. That's part of it. That's simple. For a companion of fools suffers harm. Say it again. Walk with the wise and become wise. For a companion of fools suffers harm. This scripture contains a promise and a warning. Here's the promise. You become wise by doing life with the wise. You hang around wise people. You hang around people who make good choices. And guess what you will tend to do? You will begin to make wise choices. You will begin to make better choices when you hang around wise people. When you begin to hang around people who seem to do it. Wisdom is contagious. Stupidity is too. Sometimes you don't have to teach it. You just have to hang around stupid and you just begin to think, you know. Anybody remember the last few words of a redneck? Watch this. Anyway. Wisdom can rub off. Walk with the wise and do life with is equal to do life with. Walk with and do life with. Do life with the wise and you will become wise. And you can go home with that right there. Now I want you to think for a minute, close your eyes, think about your friend and think about the last time you went out and did something with your friends. Are they very wise? No. Are you keeping a companion? Listen, I cannot judge your friends. This is for you. Are you walking with the foolish? Wise people understand that life is connected and that they live or act accordingly. Because everything's connected, you got to live, that there's consequences to your action. Today's decisions are connected to tomorrow's outcome. So you decide today based on tomorrow. Tomorrow is decided based on today's decision. Basically, in the Bible, we say this: whatever a man sows, that will he reap. The world calls it karma. Whatever you do comes back around to you. You've got to understand this principle of sowing and reaping transcends anything. It transcends life. You don't even have to believe the Bible, but I promise you, whatever you sow, you'll reap. You smoke for years and years and years, and you're going to reap the result of that. You eat a lot of food and don't exercise. Ooh, Lord, don't look at me. Don't judge me. And you will reap the benefit or the consequences of your actions. What I do for the best and what I do for the worst, I reap. I will always, listen, this law, if you spend money carelessly and then when you get old and you look to retire, all of a sudden you're going to say, you know what? There's nothing to retire on. Why? Because you sowed poorly, therefore you reap poorly. But if you put back and you save, and all of a sudden one day when your friends are starving, they're going to be coming knocking at your door because you got money, because you saved. Where they spent up front, you saved so that one day you wouldn't have to get by on a system that is flawed. That's a whole other sermon. Okay, we're not going to do politics today, but that's a whole other story. So that's the promise, the warning. You run the risk of something bad happening to you when you run with fools. You run the risk of something bad happening to you when you run with fools. This is where the deception lies. I tell myself that since I'm not that bad, since I'm not that wild, since I'm not that freaky, I'll be okay. This is my favorite lie of the devil. I'll go, I just won't participate. I'll go to that party, I just won't drink. I'll go to that boy's house, I just won't do anything. I'll go, I just won't participate. And we convince ourselves that we're okay because we're not actually that bad of a person. The Bible doesn't say, he who runs with fools becomes foolish. It says that they will suffer harm. Here's the deal. You will be a victim of the shrapnel of their actions. When their life blows up, everything around them gets hit. And you're a part of the consequences of hanging around people that when their life goes nuts, you're tied in with them. Most of the time you wonder why your parents don't trust you and you want to go do certain things. You're like, well, I don't want them to trust me. Why don't you trust me? Because you know why? They're looking at the people you're hanging around with and you've given them no reason to trust your good judgment. Because a companion of fools suffers harm. This is good preaching. I wish mamas and daddies in here. They'd be amen and left and right. Amen. Amen. Don't you wish your boy was here? Okay. A fool in Proverbs is someone who knows what is wrong but just doesn't care. He or she lives a life that isn't connected. They just believe that no matter what, today is the day, live for today, tomorrow's another day, worry about that then. They believe that life's not connected. So in Proverbs, I know I should be doing this, I just don't care. I know that stealing's wrong, so I don't do that. And we're like, well, I don't steal, Pastor Brian. I know that having sex before marriage is wrong, but, I'll be okay. I know that going out and hanging around with people and drinking and getting drunk and living a debaucherous lifestyle, is it that bad? We think that life is disconnected. We know it's wrong, we just don't care. That's what a fool is. It's someone who knows what's right but just doesn't care and does what they want to. When you warn a fool, he or she doesn't say, wow, I didn't know that. If I'd have only known. You know what happens when you warn a fool? They go, so? Who cares? The warning has to do with proximity. When you read this verse, it doesn't have to do with who you are. It has to do with proximity. He who runs with fools, he who walks with fools will suffer harm. It has to do with proximity. You're like, well, I'm not like them. It doesn't matter if you're not like them. If you are with them, you will suffer the same consequences many times because you are involved in relationships and allowed yourself to be close to people that are going to pull you down. Now here's the deal. I know most of you really well. Some of you little. And I can count many times where I've seen some of you guys come in here and you guys are so excited to introduce me to your new latest relationship of love interest. To which I kind of catch myself and I thought, oh Lord, Why? Because here's what I know. He who runs with fools suffers harm. And you're about to suffer harm, but you are so blinded in the immediate that you can't see tomorrow. And so when tomorrow comes, all of a sudden you're like surprised and you're shocked because you would not listen to the warning signs that were being shouted to you. And most of the time when you don't see the warning signs, it's kind of like when my mama used to ride with me when I just started driving. Her favorite thing was to sit in the passenger seat and go like this. She thought she had a brake on her side. She didn't have a brake, but she thought she did. So I would pull out and she could, look, what's the big deal? We didn't get hit. Hallelujah. She'd close her eyes, push on the floor, and she'd call my name over and over because she thought that would help. So here's the deal. When you're about to be in danger, when you're headed for danger, your friends, your mama, your daddy, your best buddy is on the side. They're screaming, they're pushing on the floor, they're like, stop, 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 stop. And you're like, what's the big deal? Until one day you don't have time to stop. And the reality of your choices smacks up right against the side of your life. And then all of a sudden you're having to say, you know what happened? Why did things go so wrong? God, where are you? Why did you let this happen? God didn't let this happen. You made choices that allowed yourself to fall into this thing. Because why? You chose to run with fools rather than run with the wise. You knew this would be better for you, but you chose to run over here. It's a very simple verse, but so many times we look at this and we try to overcomplex it. We try to make it too hard. But the reality is, friends, the friends we choose, the friends we run with, the friends we walk with, the friends that we do life with, determine the direction and the quality of your life. I mean, we can say this 1,000 times. Let it sink in. The friends you choose, the friends you run with, the friends you make life with will determine the direction and the quality of your life. You get in the wrong place, wrong time because you're in the wrong proximity of people you should have never been involved with in the first place. Friends who aren't careful with their lives will not be careful with yours. What? But they're my friend. They wouldn't let that happen to me. They're not taking care of themselves. Why are they going to take care of you? Friends who don't care about their own lives are not going to be careful with yours. Friends who don't take themselves or who don't take care of themselves won't take care of you. Friends who don't take care of their relationships won't look out for yours. Friends who are irresponsible with their finances are going to be irresponsible with yours. Friends who don't mind abusing their bodies don't mind if you abuse yours. Friends who cheat feel better when you cheat. And friends who break the law don't confront you when you break the law. People who don't care about their lives, why are they going to care about yours? Friends can be dangerous. And danger requires what? Warning signs. So you got these warning signs that all of a sudden you see that your life was headed in a direction that you should have never been headed in the first place. You see yourself going down a path, but yet you don't know how to throw on the brakes, and you've already been going this way so long, how can you stop? You see yourself already going down a path, and you don't know how to change directions, so you just keep going down the wrong path. When everyone alongside you is saying, don't you see the sign? But you don't know what to do. You've got to realize the people you allow in your life are going to determine which way you go. So you have to hear the signs, and you have to be willing to establish a new direction, a new standard, and start when the lights start coming on and the warning sign starts flashing, you have to be ready to change direction. It's a good message. Listen, if my youth pastor could have preached a great message on how to stay out of trouble, he would have started with my friends. Everything I ever did done, every stupid story you ever hear Pastor Brian tell in youth, everything you ever hear me tell about some reality of me still in my mama's Cadillac sneaking out, guess what? I wasn't alone. I had somebody with me. Because my friends determined the direction and the quality of my life. And it wasn't until one day I woke up and I said, you know what? I don't like the way I'm going through. And I remember I was at a revival. James Payne revival. I don't remember, I think I've told you guys about this before, but Saunders' dad came up to me one night after service and shouted out my notes, so y'all just bear with me. Saunders' dad came up to me and said, Brian, I'm praying that the Lord would heap coals of fire on your head. And I thought, what's that all about? I'm a good guy. Because you know what? Nobody doing wrong ever thinks that they're a bad person. Nobody thinks in here, nobody walks there and says, I'm just a bad person. Everybody in here thinks, I'm not as bad as someone else. Now I remember that night I took off and I was with my girlfriend, and no, it wasn't Sandra. She didn't even want to look at me then. That's okay. I didn't care. And so I got with my friends, and I got with my girlfriend and his girlfriend, and we went down the road. And I remember that night, it was raining, and I slid off and went in a ditch, and the car crashed. And I remember having to call my dad, and all I could think is, Brother Shaver, you know. That's all right, I got him back. I married his daughter. Okay. And moved her 8 hours. No, I didn't do that on purpose. I'm just kidding. But you know, I do remember going back that next night to revival, and I remember God dealing with my heart and really opened up some things. And I remember giving my heart, I said, God, I'm going to sell out to you then. And I remember the first time I had to make a choice between choosing what God wanted for me and my old friends. It wasn't easy. And I remember starting hanging out with Scott and Travis, who were some guys that were my age in my youth group, and we started hanging out, and my friends would call, and I said, you know what, I can't go. Y'all have heard me tell the stories about us going witnessing down on Locust Street. And if you haven't, we'll save it for another night. But I remember my friend saying, you want to hang out? I said, dude, I'm going witnessing. He goes, no, you ain't. I said, yeah, I am. So I went and picked him up, and he didn't ever go back out with me again. And you know, I remember making those choices left and right. And it was tough. But you know what? At some point in my life, I had to realize that the friends that I chose, the friends I ran with, changed and decided and determined the direction and the quality of my life. When I chose better friends, my life went in a better direction. When I chose poor friends, when I ran with the foolish, I suffered harm. You know what? Many of you guys, you're in here today, and your whole school year last year suffered harm because you hung and you followed, you went poor directions, in the wrong directions. You made wrong choices. And this year you think, how can it be different? I'm going to tell you right now, if you go back to the school and you hang out with the same people, you're going to become the same person. At some point, you're going to have to line your life up with new friends and a new direction. You're going to have to choose a new path. Because if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. At some point, you have to start looking and choosing a new direction in your life. And until you do that, nothing's going to change. People who want to be successful don't continue heading down paths that are going to wreck their lives. They make better choices and they change and they line up. Isn't it funny that a lot of these politicians have horrible pasts, but at some point they say, you know what, I'm going to run for office. I can't keep hanging out with these losers. And they get their life on a different path because they know that they want something greater. You know, if you want to do something for God, if you want to live for God, if you want to do what you're supposed to do, you don't want to suffer harm, you're going to have to learn to run with the wise. You're going to have to find good godly men and good godly women to hang out with. You're going to have to get yourself attached to something bigger than you are and start disconnecting from the friends that keep helping you suffer the same harm that you were in last year. Your conscience should light up when it dawns on you that your core group of friends aren't moving in the direction that you want your life to move in. It should go off nuts whenever you realize that your life is moving in a direction and your friends are moving in a direction that you don't want to move in. This is in blue. I think it's in your notes. Where people are headed is a good indication of where they're leading. Where people are headed is a good indication of where they're leading. Listen, if you got friends that do drugs occasionally, don't make no doubt about it. They're doing drugs. They're headed down a path. And if you're with them, you are following and you will suffer the harm of the same decisions that they're making. Where they're headed is where they're leading. And if you're there with them, you're following. And you're going down the same path. If your friends are out partying all the time and you think you would never do it, let me tell you, if you're hanging out with them, one day you're going to realize that the friends that you're hanging out with are heading you down a direction and leading you down a direction that you wish that you would have never gone to in the first place. There's adults in here that can tell you about regret in life. But they can also tell you about great choices that they made and the turning point in their life that changed everything. You know, for some of us men, and I know some of these guys, we've talked before, It was when they met a girl and decided they were going to get a good Christian girl. And their mama said, you ain't dating unless you come to church. And so they started coming to church. And they said, you know what, this ain't so bad. And they gave their life to God. And now they've never been the same since. Been serving God ever since. Thank goodness for good Christian mamas with good Christian daughters who will let their daughters date, but good Christian men. Amen. Lost my place because I was caught up in it. Okay. You catch yourself pretending to be someone. Listen, your life should light up when you catch yourself pretending someone that you don't really want to be. When you start acting and try to be something that you're really not, your life ought to light up and say, warning, warning, warning. Listen, there's some cars that have these really annoying warning symbols, and they go, ding, 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 and they go for like 5 minutes after you start driving, and you just want to like tear it out and reach in the dash and say, go away. It should drive you nuts. There should be something in your life going, warning, 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 whenever you see yourself starting to act some way that you shouldn't act. You should feel pressure. When you feel pressure to compromise, your life should go bling, 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 warning, warning, warning. Something that has never really been a temptation in your life becomes a temptation. You should have warning lights go off. When you hear yourself saying, I'll go, but I won't participate, that should be a warning light that goes off in your life. When you hope that the people you care about the most don't find out where you've been or who you've been with, that should be a warning sign in your life. Never mind. I could harp on stories all day long. Don't confuse warnings in your life with a lack of concern. You don't realize this, but the one day, the people that you need to get away from, you need to be ready so that you can help them. One day they're going to be in need, and you need to be in a position that you can help them. And if you're running with them, they're not going to turn to you. You're not going to be in a position to help them. You're going to be in a position that needs help. Years later, I remember, and I've got to leave several of my classmates to the Lord, but it's after I made a decision. You know, I still remember the first soul. I still remember the first person I ever won to the Lord. I was at a lunch table. And I remember sitting there across this young lady in my grade, and I remember just learning the Roman road. And I was going down the Roman road. I still remember leading her to the Lord. No longer did I view myself as someone just trying to have fun and just trying to go live life for me. But all of a sudden my life began to change, and I had purpose. And I lived that moment from there on wanting to lead people to Christ. I've been serving in full-time ministry for over 18 years, leading teenagers to Christ. And you know what? I wouldn't take anything from my journey. Because when I made up my mind, I never turned back. Creating margin in your friendships and in your relationships is painful, but it's necessary. There are people in your life that you're going to have to distance yourself from. It's not easy. Take it from someone who had to do it firsthand. It's not easy, but you're going to have to. But you know what the exciting is? Some people this summer have made a difference in a choice to follow Christ that you haven't even talked to all summer. And you're going to want to run away, but they're going to say, listen, what's different about you? And you're going to say, I gave my heart to Jesus. And you know what they're going to say? I did too. And you're going to be able to hook up with some new friends and new relationships. If you just allow yourself to distance yourself from old ones and bad ones. Listen, when I was talking about this whole sermon, when I talk about friends you need to distance yourself, many of you guys immediately thought of somebody. There's people that came to mind that you thought, you know what, there's some people, I know somebody I need to distance. There's somebody right now that I should delete off my Facebook. I need to delete their number off my cell phone number. There's people, as I was thinking, that you know exactly who these people are, and you begin to think through the process and you just don't know what to do. You don't even know what to do. But you've got, at some point, you've got to distance yourself. Face up to God. Face up for what God wants you to do and step back from where you are now and see what God really wants you to do and go after it. A year from now, do you wish you would have come back to the night and made the decision to step back and change the friendships in your life? Think about it. Be intentional about walking with the wise, because a companion of fools eventually suffers harm. That's what it's all about tonight. The greatest warning sign, and we're going to talk about some more next week. We got small groups, and they got a big warning sign for you. But if you can cover this one first, it'll take care of that one. And then the week after that, we're going to finish up the series. And then the week after that, we're going to have School Spirit Night, and we're going to ask you to invite all your friends to come out. And you're going to give them a chance not to be a companion of fools, but to be a companion of wise, for your sake and for theirs. But tonight, I want to challenge you. So everyone stand to your feet. And simply this. I believe we have some of the greatest students, some of the greatest college kids, some of the greatest adults in our church. And I think if many of us were honest with ourselves, not just honest with who's in this room, honest with ourselves, we would realize that we have got to begin to make better choices with who we run with. Better relationships, better friendships. We've got to make better choices in everything we do, because it really is true. If you run with the wise, you become wise. But a companion of fools eventually suffers harm. Maybe not immediate, but eventually you'll suffer harm. And eventually it'll take time. You'll think, how do I get out of this mess? How do I get out of this situation? But the damage is already done. I'm going to ask Travis to come, and I really just want Travis tonight. The rest of the musicians can stay where they are. I just want to challenge you guys. You that are in here tonight. You've got friendships in your life, and some of you didn't disconnect this summer. Some of you still are hanging out all summer long with the same friends that are constantly leading you down the road that you shouldn't go. Some of you started school. You started back to school with your football. Some already doing basketball training. You're starting to hang out, and you're starting to feel old feelings come back, and you're thinking, man, how did this happen? Man, I really thought God made a change in my life. And the problem is that you're beginning to align yourself again with the same people that brought you down. See, friends are like elevators. They'll take you up or they'll take you down. And you've got to make better choices. And so, you know what? I know this. It's not easy. And you can't do it alone. But tonight, here's what you can start with. You can say, I'm going to make a commitment to you, God, that from here on out, I'm going to make better choices in the friends that I run with. God, forgive me for the dumb decisions I made. But tonight, God, I'm going to make better choices. Then tonight, you can also do this. We're full of a room full of potential. That's what we are. And tonight, you can begin to find a new accountability partner, new friends, begin to hang out with. Listen, is everybody in here wise right now, living as wise? No. Some have been foolish this summer. Some have been foolish last year. But there's so much potential in this room to change. So tonight, as we close out, we're going to open up these altars one more time. This is the last altar call before school starts. I know we've had some big services, and I know that these altars all during July are amazing, amazing, amazing interns preached. And these altars were full every night. I couldn't ask for a better return and a better reception. I preached that next night, and I remember these altars were full, and Clint preached and these altars were full, and this week it's a little bit much, but tonight's a little different. It's the last altar call before you begin your 2012-2013 school year. Now, I don't want you to just come here and have a teary-eyed moment. I want you to say this: I'm stepping up to the front because I'm settling this issue once and for all, that I'm choosing Christ. I'm going to choose wise friends. I'm no longer going to keep going down the same path and keep wondering how I got in the mess that I'm in. But tonight, I'm going to begin a new path. And I'm going to say, God, with your help, I'm going to make better friends. God, with you, I'm going to find wise to run with. I'm going to find, Lord, people that are going after you with all their heart, not people that are wasting away the life and the time that you've given them. Tonight is really an altar call about you committing to yourself that once and for all, you're no longer going to run with the fools, but you're going to chase after the wise. And then after you come, those who hadn't come, we're going to give them a chance to pray with you. But some of you, just let me squeeze this in here. Some of you, maybe there's just a few of you, maybe just a handful of you. That maybe you've been the foolish that people have been running with, and God's challenged you, man, to give your heart once and for all to Him. Maybe you've made some really bad decisions and people have followed you places that they thought they would never go. Tonight I challenge you, give your heart to God once and for all and settle this issue. And no longer live as the foolish, but as God has called you to live as the wise. Simply this. If you're ready to make that call, I'm just going to count to 3. I know it's kind of corny, but it's just a starting point. It's just like there's the starting block. There's a line right at that front deal. And as soon as I count to 3, all you got to do is commit. If you're wanting to come, you want to make a new choice. Make better decisions this year. Maybe you started band camp, and maybe all of a sudden you realize the old friends you used to hang with, they drag you down. You got to make better choices this year. 2. This is your last chance before school starts to make sure everything's right between you and God. To make sure that you're set up for success and not failure. Here it goes. Ready? 3.